So guess what day it is? And no, it's not Christmas. That's right, it's How to Tuesday. And for today, we're gonna be breaking down one of the most basic grinds, the double peg, or as some call it, the 50-50. All right, so for starters, you're gonna need a bike with at least 2 pegs, preferably 4. That gives you more options. Bike, check. Next up, you're gonna need a grinding surface. And for today, we're gonna be using the Subrosa rail. Luckily, the fine folk over at Sparky's were able to hook me up with one of these bad boys, so I recommend you check these out. All right, so for this trick, we're gonna be getting these 2 pegs. They're gonna be on the same side of the bike onto this grinding surface. And how are we gonna do that, you ask? First thing you wanna do is size this bad boy up. All right, so as you can see, the Subrosa rail stands about 18 inches off the ground. Meanwhile, your pegs only stand about 11.5 inches off the ground. Yep, you've guessed it. So that means you just have to get about 6.5 inches off the ground in order to get onto this rail. All right, so now that we got the geometry out of the way, let's figure out some fundamentals. For starters, you're gonna wanna ride towards the rail at a pretty gradual speed, perpendicular to the rail, with a slight angle towards it. You still wanna ride perpendicular to it, but your front wheel is gonna be slightly turning into it. This helps you close the gap without being too close. And the reason for that is that when you're about to hop up, you don't want your pegs to snag on the way and ruin your whole day. I hope he's not watching while I'm talking about him. Anyways, so when you're approaching the rail, you want to have a good distance. Nothing too close, nothing too far. I would say somewhere between 6 to 8 inches from the rail. And again, the reason for that is that when you're hopping, if you're too close, you're gonna snag the bottom of the rail while going up. And if you're too far, you're gonna either be crashing into it sideways, or you're gonna be landing too hard on it because you're compensating by hopping higher and slamming down. And that's gonna hinder your grinding ability. And also, if you're just too far, then you're just making this trick a little harder than it has to be. All right, since I'm left foot forward, the majority of this tutorial is gonna be on my left side. I'll do some switch grinds, which means that I'll be grinding on my right side. Either way, the concept is still the same. You're gonna wanna hop and get both pegs on the rail. And if you're goofy footed, just don't even grind the rail, to be honest. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so as a side note, it really does help if you learned how to do a double peg on a ledge first. And the real main difference between a ledge and a rail is that you don't have anywhere to step. So as you can see here, if you're gonna miss the rail, you're gonna wanna try and step, and you have to be very precise to actually put your foot on the rail. If you try and learn these grinds on a ledge first, then you have the element that allows you to kind of step onto what you're grinding as opposed to over. But I have some faith in you guys. I think that you can take it to this level and, you know, learn them on a rail. All right, so one of the first things I recommend is to always measure what you're gonna hop onto. And you do that by just hopping next to it and seeing your height. So fundamentally speaking, the double peg is the closest grind you're gonna get to a bunny hop. And what I mean by that is you're gonna be replicating the same motion. You're gonna wanna lift the front end, then match the back end. On a double peg, you're gonna wanna get the front peg on, followed by the back peg. Some people prefer to land both pegs even, but I've come to find that if you land with the front peg before your back peg, you actually get a little more control. You can kind of ease your way onto the rail than if you crash both pegs down at the same time. So check out these replays and you'll see that I've dramatized some of the ways that you can mess up the double peg. What I've done is snag on the way up, lean too far over, missed my back peg, missed my front peg, landed in a feeble, overgrinded it, went too slow, and if you go too fast, I don't want to do that one because I'll probably hurt myself. And we really pride on having no Alfredos hindered in the making of these videos. As customary to most of my how-tos, I advise you guys to go at a moderate speed. You always want to learn to crawl before you walk and before you run. And if you're going too fast at any of these things before you have it dialed, you're gonna be running your way to the emergency room. So here are the steps. Approach the rail at a slow speed. You're gonna wanna be perpendicular to it, but you're gonna wanna be riding at a slight angle towards the rail. You're gonna wanna aim your front peg on first, then you're gonna wanna get your back peg on. So as you hop, you're gonna be hopping both up and sideways to land on the rail. And as soon as you land, you're gonna wanna stay centered on the rail. So that means that I'm not teeter-tottering either left or right. Obviously you're grinding a rail, so it's rounded. You're gonna be able to lean a lot more than a ledge. When you're grinding a ledge, it's covering the full area of the peg, but when you're grinding a rail, you have about 15 or 20 degrees that you can kind of lean over or under on the rail. So initially, you're gonna wanna try and stall the rail. You're not gonna really wanna try and grind the whole thing or anything like that. You just wanna get comfortable and familiar with hopping onto it. And once you're on it, if you're going pretty slow, you actually are forced to have to balance more, so you actually learn how to grind better. Again, this grind is pretty fun, and it's really straightforward if you think about it. It's gonna be the closest thing resembling a bunny hop. When you do an ice pick grind, a toothpick grind, or a crank arm or anything like that, you're not in a traditional bunny hop position, because for an ice pick, you have to lean kind of far back. For a toothpick, you have to be leaning really far forward. For a crank arm grind, you're gonna have to be turned sideways a little bit. So the double peg is the most straightforward, and it's the building block for all the other grinds. So some other tidbits that might come in handy for you guys are that if you're falling over the grind, as in you're grinding and leaning too far into the grind, which causes you to go over the rail, just lean the bike in that direction, but keep your body centered or more to the right. So as you can see here, I'm grinding on the left, my bike is slightly leaned to the left, and my body is slightly to the right. And that kind of gives you a good balancing point of swaying back and forth. So another thing I might have forgotten to mention, wax. When you're grinding rails and you have plastic pegs, or if you're a dinosaur and you still have metal pegs, wax really helps to provide a really smooth grinding surface, and it just makes things easier. So wax it on up. Like it is with any trick, it's gonna take thousands and thousands of tries until you get it really perfected. And even then, if you don't do it all that often, you're gonna lose it, you have to relearn it. So just be patient with it. It's a pretty dope grind. You'll be able to do it on all sorts of things, from curbs to ledges to rails to loading docks to the back of an ice cream truck. You can get creative with it, but yeah, it's super fun. Always have to let the cars go by, or else that background noise is just annoying. Anyways, I hope this tutorial really helped you guys. Once you have the double peg really dialed in, I want you guys to tag me on Instagram or Twitter on all the crazy things you grind. And as always, thank you for watching this how-to. I hope it was enjoyable. I hope you guys learn it. Please comment, share, like, and subscribe. Cheers, boys. Once you know that you can fully 180, you shouldn't be afraid of the speed. It's just calculating how much speed and how much yang and pocket. Feel it.